Welcome to Night Whisper. Night Whisper brings you the darkest tales from the shadows. Join our community. Subscribe, leave a like, and prepare yourself for stories that will haunt your dreams. A graveyard shift job at a crummy RV stop isn't, say, a beacon of career aspirations. All right, that's fine. But when you're a college student on a tight budget trying to save up enough dough for your veterinary assistant courses, you'll take what you can get. My name is Lane Harper, and 3 months ago, I thought that the most difficult part of this job would be staying up until 6 a.m. I was wrong. So, very, very wrong. I'd seen the job advertisement on a creased flyer that was stuck to a telephone pole near my apartment. Night at $22 an hour for a night shift in the middle of nowhere. That was almost too good to be true, but I called anyway. The voice on the other side of the line was an old voice, a rough campfire smoke, breathing in forest air voice. "Are you calling about a job?" "Yes, sir. I saw that advertisement and can you commence tomorrow night?" I blinked. Don't you want to interview me first?" "Of course. Sorry." There was a long pause. Then, a dry chuckle. "Son, if you are available for night work at Pike's RV stop, you are already qualified. I want you there by 5:30. I'll show you the ropes." The line went dead. Pike's RV stop was located on the fringe of Black Pine National Forest, a good 40-minute drive out of town. The type of business you wouldn't even notice as you whizzed by, except maybe if you were searching for it. And most weren't. The dominant structure was an antediluvian single-story affair that struggled along with a peeling layer of white paint and a roof that seemed to sag with a weight that threatened to bring it all crashing down around their ears. 2 of those ancient gas pumps stood out front that belonged in a museum. Over the door, a hand-painted sign declared, "Pike's RV, Stop, Est 1967, in letters that were once a fiery red, but were now weathered to a rusty brown. There were also 8 numbered spaces for RVS in a semicircle facing the tree line in back of the main building. These were nearly all empty, overrun with weeds, as if no RV had used those spaces in years. And beyond the RV spots, the forest. Black Pine National Forest stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction. Old growth trees so tall they blocked out the sky, shadows that seemed to move even when there was no wind. I'd heard stories about Black Pine. Everyone in town had. Hikers who went in and never came out. Strange lights seen deep in the woods at night. Sounds that couldn't be explained by any animal known to science. But stories were just stories. Right? Edgar Pike was waiting for me on the front porch when I pulled into the gravel lot at 5:25. He was older than I expected, mid-60s at least, with a weathered face and deep-set eyes that looked like they'd seen things he didn't talk about. His gray hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and he wore a faded flannel shirt tucked into worn jeans. "You must be Lane," he said, not getting up from his rocking chair. "You're early. That's good?" "Yes, sir. Lane Harper." He studied me for a long moment. His eyes moved across my face like he was reading something written there, something I couldn't see. "You got that look?" he finally said. "What look?" "The look of someone who needs this job bad enough to take it seriously." He pushed himself up from the chair with a grunt. "Come on inside. Got some things to show you." The interior of Pike's RV stop was exactly what you'd expect from a place that hadn't been updated since the Carter administration. Dusty shelves lined with camping supplies, a refrigerated section with sodas and beer, a small counter with an ancient cash register that still had actual buttons you had to push. There was a tiny office in the back with a desk, a cot, and a small TV that only got 3 channels, a bathroom that was cleaner than I expected, and a storage room filled with emergency supplies, flashlights, batteries, road flares, first aid kits. "Job simple enough," Edgar said, leading me through the building. Keep the place clean. Stock the shelves when they need stocking. Help any customers that come through. Most nights you won't see more than 2 or 3 people, sometimes none at all. That's it? He stopped walking, turned to face me. That's the normal part of the job. Something in his voice made my stomach tighten. There's another part? Edgar reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small notebook. It was bound in black leather, worn soft with age. The edges of the pages were yellowed. This, he said, pressing it into my hands, is what the job is really about. I looked down at the notebook. There was nothing written on the cover. No title, no name. What is it? The rules. He walked past me toward the front door. Read it after I leave. Every word, don't skip anything. Rules for what? He paused at the door, didn't turn around. For staying alive. Then he was gone. I heard his truck start up outside, heard the crunch of gravel as he drove away. And I was alone. I stood at the front window and watched the tail lights disappear down the road. The sun was already starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The trees at the edge of the forest were turning into black silhouettes against the fading light. That's when I heard it. A sharp, high-pitched whistle. Like a tea kettle, but somehow musical. I looked up. Perched on a metal bracket above the front door was the strangest bird I'd ever seen. A crow, but completely white. Not a single dark feather on its body. Its eyes were pink, almost translucent. An albino crow. It was staring directly at me. Well, I said out loud, feeling slightly ridiculous. I guess you're part of the welcome committee. The crow tilted its head. Then it whistled again, 3 short notes that almost sounded like a greeting. I remembered Edgar's truck pulling away. He hadn't mentioned anything about a bird, but something told me this wasn't a normal bird. I went back inside, grabbed a bag of corn chips from the shelf, and headed back out to the porch. The crow watched me approach with those strange pink eyes. You hungry? I opened the bag and held out a chip. The crow hopped down from its perch, landed on the porch railing, and delicately plucked the chip from my fingers. It ate quickly, then looked at me expectantly. You got a name? It whistled. 2 notes, high, then low. I'm going to call you Nimbus, I said, because you're white, like a cloud. The crow, Nimbus, seemed to consider this. Then it whistled again and flew back up to its perch above the door. I had a feeling we were going to be friends. With the sun almost gone, I went back inside and settled onto the stool behind the counter. I turned on the small lamp next to the register, pulled out the black notebook Edgar had given me, and opened it to the first page. The handwriting inside was small and precise, written in black ink that had faded to a dark gray over the years. At the top of the first page, in capital letters, were 3 words: Rules for Survival. I took a deep breath and started reading. Rule 1. Do not alter this notebook. Do not erase or modify any entry. If you discover new information, add it to the back pages only. The rules exist for a reason. Rule 2. The white crow is called the Watcher's Warning. She will alert you when something approaches from the forest. Learn her signals. 1 whistle equals visitor approaching, probably safe. 2 whistles equals stay alert, observe carefully. 3 whistles equals danger, prepare to act. Continuous whistling equals immediate threat, follow emergency protocols. Rule 3. If a visitor arrives after midnight with a yellow glow emanating from their eyes, skin, or clothing, do not let them inside the building. Be polite. Tell them the store is closed for inventory. Do not make direct eye contact for more than 3 seconds. Wait until they leave. They always leave eventually. Rule 4. Keep the emergency floodlights in working condition at all times. Replace bulbs immediately when they burn out. Light is your primary defense. Never let the exterior lights go dark between sunset and sunrise. Rule 5. If the fog over the forest turns orange, close the road immediately. Use the barricades in the storage room. No one enters or exits the forest until the fog returns to normal. This is non-negotiable. I stopped reading. My hands were shaking. This had to be a joke, some kind of elaborate hazing ritual for the new guy. Edgar seemed like the type who might have a weird sense of humor. But the way he'd looked at me, the weight in his voice when he said, "staying alive," that hadn't felt like a joke. I forced myself to keep reading. Rule 6. There is a dog that patrols the forest at night. You will never see him, but you may see his footprints in soft ground or hear him moving through the underbrush. His name is Bramble. He is an ally. If you ever see prints leading toward the RV spots, follow them. Someone needs help. Rule 7. Once per night, usually between 2 and 4 a.m., you may hear metal scraping against metal somewhere in the forest. A rhythmic sound, like a blade being sharpened. When you hear this sound, check the RV spots immediately. If anyone is camping there, wake them. Tell them there's a gas leak. Get them in their vehicles and off the property. They can return in the morning. Rule 8. There is an entity in the forest that the previous attendants called the Looker. It stands approximately 9 feet tall. It has antlers, but the left antler is broken. Its body absorbs light, appearing as a moving shadow even in complete darkness. If you ever see it directly, do not run, do not scream, lower your eyes, back away slowly. It responds to fear. Do not give it what it wants. Rule 9. Every morning at sunrise, fill Nimbus's silver cup with dried corn and 3 green apple slices. The cup is mounted on her perch above the door. This is her payment for protection. Never forget. Never skip. Rule 10. If any of the above rules seem unreasonable, unnecessary, or fictional, ignore that feeling. Every rule was written because someone had to learn the hard way. Don't become the next lesson. I closed the notebook. Outside, the last light of day had disappeared. The forest was now a wall of darkness pressing against the edges of the property. The only illumination came from the old sodium lights over the gas pumps, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Nimbus whistled once from her perch. One whistle, visitor approaching, probably safe. My heart was hammering in my chest. I told myself it was just the creepy rules getting to me. Just my imagination running wild. Then, headlights appeared on the road. A silver pickup truck pulled into the lot and stopped at the gas pumps. A man got out, middle-aged, wearing a fishing vest and a baseball cap. Completely normal. He waved at me through the window as he started filling his tank. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Just a normal customer. See? Everything was fine. I watched him finish pumping, come inside, buy a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of water, and drive away without incident. No yellow glow, no strange behavior. Normal. I told myself the rules were probably just Edgar's way of dealing with the isolation. Something he'd created to make the long nights more interesting. A game he played with himself to stay sane. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. That something in the forest was looking back. The next few hours passed slowly. I had 2 more customers, a young couple in a beat-up Volkswagen who bought energy drinks and asked for directions to the nearest campsite, and an older woman in an RV who just wanted to use the bathroom. Normal people. Normal interactions. By midnight, I was starting to relax. I'd made some coffee, found a nature documentary on the tiny TV in the office, and was actually starting to think that maybe this job wouldn't be so bad after all. That's when Nimbus started whistling. 2 notes, sharp and urgent. Stay alert. Observe carefully. I muted the TV and walked to the front window. At first, I didn't see anything, just the empty parking lot, the gas pumps, the dark line of trees beyond. Then, movement. Near the edge of the forest. Someone was walking out of the woods. I squinted, trying to make out details in the darkness. It was a man. At least, I thought it was a man. Tall and thin, wearing dark clothing, moving with a strange, jerky gait, like a marionette with tangled strings. He stepped out of the tree line and stopped, just stood there, facing the RV stop. The floodlights cast deep shadows across his face, making it impossible to see his features clearly. But something about him was wrong, something I couldn't quite identify. Then he started walking toward the building. Nimbus whistled again. 2 notes, more insistent this time. I glanced at the clock. 12:47 a.m. The rules said visitors after midnight with a yellow glow shouldn't be let inside. But this guy wasn't glowing. He was just weird. He reached the front porch, stopped at the door. Through the glass, I could finally see his face. He was smiling, but it was the wrong kind of smile. Too wide, too many teeth visible. Like he'd learned how to smile by watching someone else do it and hadn't quite gotten the hang of it. And his eyes were normal. Brown, completely normal. I relaxed slightly. No yellow glow. The rules didn't apply. I walked to the door and opened it. "Evening?" I said. "Help you with something?" The man's smile didn't falter. He tilted his head at an angle that should have been uncomfortable. "I need to use your telephone," he said. His voice was flat, monotone, like a computer-generated recording. "We don't have a public phone. There's a payphone about 10 miles back toward town. I need to use your telephone," he repeated. Same tone, same inflection, like a recording stuck on a loop. Something cold crawled down my spine. "Sorry, I can't help you. You should probably head back to—" He stepped forward, crossed the threshold into the store. And that's when I saw it. Just for a second, a flicker, like a dying light bulb. His eyes flashed. Not brown, yellow, bright, burning yellow. The color of a harvest moon, the color of warning signs. Then they were brown again. Nimbus was screaming now, a continuous piercing whistle that hurt my ears. Immediate threat. Follow emergency protocols. But I didn't know what the protocols were. I hadn't finished reading the notebook. The man was inside now, still smiling that wrong smile. "I need to use," he said, his voice dropping lower, "your telephone." I did the only thing I could think of. I reached behind me, grabbed the fire extinguisher mounted on the wall, and hurled it at the bank of switches next to the door. The switches that controlled the exterior floodlights. The extinguisher smashed into the panel, but instead of turning the lights off, the impact caused a power surge. Every light in the building flickered, then blazed to life at maximum brightness. The man screamed. It wasn't a human scream. It was something else, something that belonged in the deepest, darkest part of the forest. He threw his hands up to shield his face, and in that moment, I saw his true form. Yellow light poured from every inch of his body. His skin rippled like water. His features blurred and shifted. And then he ran. Back through the door, across the parking lot, into the trees. Gone. I stood there, breathing hard, my heart trying to punch its way out of my chest. Nimbus had stopped whistling. She hopped down from her perch and landed on the counter next to me. She made a soft, cooing sound, almost like she was saying, "Good job." "What the hell?" I whispered. "Was that?" The crow just tilted her head. I looked back at the black notebook sitting on the counter. Then I picked it up and started reading from the beginning. This time I wasn't going to skip a single word. I didn't sleep that first night. After the yellow-eyed visitor disappeared into the forest, I spent the rest of my shift with every light in the building blazing and the black notebook open in front of me. I read it cover to cover. Twice. The rules I'd already seen were just the beginning. There were pages and pages of additional notes, observations written in different handwriting, different colors of ink, spanning what looked like decades. Previous night attendants, I realized, people who'd worked this job before me. Some of the entries were clinical, detached. June 14th, orange fog appeared at 3:17 a.m. Closed road per Rule 5. Fog dissipated at sunrise. No incidents. August 3rd, heard metal scraping sound at 2:45 a.m. Evacuated campers in spots 2 and 6. Both families complained. Don't care. Better angry than dead. Others were more disturbing. I saw it tonight. The one with the broken antler. It was standing at the edge of spot 7, just watching. Didn't move for 3 hours. I didn't move either. Dawn came. It was gone. I quit tomorrow. The yellow ones are getting bolder. Third one this month. They used to stay in the trees. Now they come right up to the door. Something is changing. I can hear Bramble tonight. He's running hard. That means something is hunting, something he needs to lead away from the campers. God help whoever is out there in the forest tonight. The last entry before the blank pages at the back was dated 3 years ago. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible. Edgar says I need to take a break. He's right. I can't keep doing this. But someone has to. Someone always has to. If you're reading this, you're the new one. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just follow the rules. The rules will keep you alive. Most of the time. Most of the time. That was comforting. Edgar showed up at exactly 6 a.m. The sun was just starting to peek over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. He found me sitting on the front porch, staring at the tree line. "Rough night?" he asked, settling into his rocking chair. "You could say that." I told him about the yellow-eyed visitor, about how the lights had scared it off, about reading the entire notebook. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "You did good. Better than most on their first night." "What are they? The yellow ones?" Edgar was quiet for a long moment. He gazed out at the forest, his weathered face unreadable. "Don't rightly know," he finally said. "Been here 40 years, seen a lot of strange things, but I've never gotten a straight answer about what any of them actually are." He paused. "There's theories, of course. Some folks think they're spirits. Others say they're aliens. One guy was convinced they were demons from hell. What do you think?" He turned to look at me. His eyes were old, tired, but there was something else there too. Something that might have been acceptance. "I think they were here before us, before the roads, before the town, maybe before anything, and they don't like us being here. But as long as we follow the rules," he shrugged, "we have an understanding. An understanding. They don't come into the building if we keep the lights on. They don't take people who aren't wearing certain colors. They stay in the forest during the day." He spread his hands. "Rules, boundaries. As long as we respect them, they respect us. Mostly." I thought about the woman at the gas station and the story I'd been told by the college roommate who'd recommended this area to me. The one who'd disappeared wearing red. The bulletin board full of missing persons. What happens when someone breaks the rules? Edgar didn't answer. He didn't have to. I went home that morning and slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke up, the sun was setting again. Time to go back to work. I'll admit, I thought about quitting. Thought about calling Edgar and telling him I'd changed my mind, that $22 an hour wasn't worth whatever the hell was happening in that forest. But I didn't. Partly because I needed the money. Partly because I was curious. And partly because, well, someone had to do it, right? Someone had to man the station, watch the road, protect the campers who didn't know what they were driving into. If not me, then who? So I got in my car and drove back to Pike's RV stop. The second week was quiet. I learned the rhythms of the job, the flow of the night. I got used to Nimbus's different whistles, learned to read her body language. One whistle meant a car was coming down the road, usually just passing through. 2 whistles meant something was watching from the trees. 3 whistles meant get ready. She never gave me a continuous whistle again, not during those first 2 weeks. I had a few more yellow-eyed visitors. 3 in total. The second one was a woman. She appeared at the edge of the parking lot around 2 a.m., wearing a yellow sundress that seemed to glow from within. She just stood there, watching. I kept the lights on, didn't make eye contact, and eventually she drifted back into the forest, like smoke. The third was a child, or something shaped like a child. It knocked on the window of the office at 4 a.m., asking if I'd seen its mother. Its eyes were bright yellow, glowing like flashlights. I told it the store was closed, that it should go home, that everything would be okay in the morning. It pressed its face against the glass, its features distorted, wrong, and then it was gone. The fourth was the worst. It came on my 13th night. The evening started normally enough. Edgar left at 6. I fed Nimbus, made some coffee, settled in behind the counter with my phone. Around 8 p.m., a family pulled in. Mom, Dad, 2 kids, a boy around 10, and a girl around 7. They were towing a small camper trailer and looked exhausted. "How far to the nearest campground?" the dad asked, leaning against the counter while his wife browsed the snack aisle. "About 2 hours north, Pinewood Grove. It's got showers, electric hookups, the whole deal." He grimaced. 2 hours? Kids are getting antsy. Any chance we could just park here for the night? I saw you've got RV spots out back. I hesitated. The notebook didn't say anything about not letting people stay in the RV spots. In fact, several of the entries mentioned evacuating campers, which meant campers were expected. But something felt off about tonight. I couldn't explain it. Just a feeling, a pressure in the air, like the forest was holding its breath. "I don't know if that's a good idea," I started. "Please." The mom had come up beside her husband. She looked really tired. "We've been driving since 5 a.m. The kids need to sleep in a real bed. We'll be gone first thing in the morning." The little girl tugged on her mom's sleeve. "Mommy, can we get gummy worms?" How could I say no to that? "All right," I heard myself say. "Spot 4 is probably the best. It's closest to the building, and the lights reach it pretty well. Just stay in your trailer after dark, okay? Don't go wandering around." The dad thanked me profusely, bought a bunch of snacks, paid the camping fee, and drove around to Spot 4. I watched them set up through the window. Dad was hooking up the power. Mom was wrangling the kids inside. Normal family stuff. I told myself it would be fine. I was wrong. The metal scraping started at 2:37 a.m. I'd almost dozed off on the stool behind the counter when the sound cut through the silence. Rhythmic, deliberate, like a knife being dragged across stone. My blood went cold. I grabbed the flashlight from under the counter and ran to the window facing the RV spots. In the dim glow of the overhead lights, I could see the family's trailer in Spot 4. All the lights inside were off. They were asleep. Shh. Shh. The sound was coming from deeper in the forest, but it was getting closer. I ran to the storage room and grabbed the emergency air horn. Then I sprinted out the back door and across the gravel lot toward Spot 4. I was halfway there when I saw the footprints. Huge, at least 2 feet long, pressed deep into the soft earth near the tree line. Bramble. The invisible dog was already on patrol, but the prints weren't leading away from the campsite. They were leading toward it. Someone needs help. I ran faster. When I reached the trailer, I pounded on the door. "Wake up! You need to leave. Now!" A light came on inside. The dad's confused face appeared at the window. "What's going on?" "Gas leak. The whole area needs to be evacuated. Get your family in the car. Drive to the main building, now." "Gas leak? I don't smell any." "Shh." The sound was right at the edge of the trees now, maybe 50 feet away. The dad's face went pale. He'd heard it too. "What is that?" "I don't know, and I don't want to find out. Get your family, now." He didn't argue. 3 minutes later, the whole family was packed into their car, kids crying, mom asking questions I couldn't answer, and driving toward the main building. I stayed behind. I don't know why. Some stupid part of me needed to see, needed to know what was making that sound. The scraping had stopped. The forest was silent. And then I saw it. A shadow detached from the trees. It was tall. So tall, 9 feet at least, maybe more. Its body was darkness given form, not black, but an absence of light, like a hole cut in the fabric of reality. And on its head, antlers, massive, twisted antlers that branched toward the sky. The left one was broken, the looker. It stood at the edge of the tree line, not moving, just watching. I remembered the rule: don't run, don't scream, lower your eyes. I looked down at my feet, fought every instinct telling me to run. "I'm not afraid of you," I whispered. It was a lie. I was terrified. But maybe it couldn't tell the difference. Seconds passed. Hours. Eternities. And then I heard it move. Footsteps, if you could call them that, retreating into the forest. The crunch of undergrowth, the creak of branches. Getting quieter. Fading away. I stayed frozen until I heard Nimbus whistle from her perch. One note, low and soft, all clear. The family left at first light. The dad tried to give me $100. I told him to keep it. "Just don't come back here," I said. "Find a different campground next time." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "What did you see out there?" he asked quietly. "After we left?" I thought about lying, thought about telling him it was just an animal, a bear, a trick of the light. But he'd heard the scraping. He'd seen the fear in my eyes. "Something that shouldn't exist," I said. He didn't ask any more questions. A month passed, then 2. I settled into a routine. Feed Nimbus at sunrise, sleep during the day, drive to Pike's at sunset. Work through the night. Watch. Wait. Follow the rules. Most nights were quiet, a few customers here and there, the occasional camper who needed directions. Sometimes I'd go entire shifts without seeing another person. But the forest was always there, watching, waiting. And every few weeks, something would come out of the trees to remind me why the rules existed. I saw the orange fog for the first time in my 8th week. It started as a thin haze creeping along the ground, barely visible in the moonlight. But as the night wore on, it thickened, deepened, turned from gray to amber to a burning, pulsing orange that seemed to glow from within. Nimbus had been whistling for an hour straight by the time I got the barricades set up. Her voice was hoarse, if crows could be hoarse, and she refused to leave her perch. I dragged the sawhorses out of storage, set up the flashing hazard lights, hung the "Road Closed Emergency Situation" sign across the entrance to the forest road. Then I waited. The fog rolled up to the edge of the property and stopped. Like it had hit an invisible wall, it churned there, pressing against the boundary, tendrils reaching out toward the building like fingers. And in the fog, I saw shapes, not clear enough to identify. Just movement. Figures drifting through the orange haze. Some were human-sized. Others were much, much bigger. They stayed in the fog, never crossed into the clear air. But I could feel them watching. At 4:47 a.m., a pickup truck came speeding down the main road, heading toward the forest, toward the barricade. I ran out into the road, waving my arms. The truck screeched to a halt about 10 feet from the sawhorses. The driver, a guy about my age, wild-eyed and frantic, jumped out. "You gotta let me through. My girlfriend's up there. She went hiking yesterday and she hasn't come back." "I can't," I said. "The road's closed." "I can see the damn sign. I don't care. Move that thing or I'll move it myself." "Listen to me." I grabbed his arm. "There's fog, orange fog. You can't see it from here because it's lower than the tree line, but it's there. If you drive into that fog, you won't come out." "That's insane. Look at my face." "Do I look like I'm joking?" He looked. Something in my expression must have convinced him because some of the fight went out of his shoulders. "What do I do? She's out there, alone." I thought about the shapes in the fog, the figures I'd seen, the ones that were human-sized. "What's her name?" "Rebecca. Rebecca Lawson." "What was she wearing?" Jeans, hiking boots, and a green fleece jacket." "Why does that matter?" "Green, not yellow, not red. Green. It might matter more than you know." I pulled out my phone. "I'm going to call someone. You're going to wait here. When the fog clears, and it will clear at sunrise, we'll go look for her together, okay?" He didn't want to agree. Every fiber of his being wanted to drive into that forest and find the person he loved. But he nodded. The fog lifted at 6:12 a.m., burning off like morning dew. Edgar arrived at 6:15. I explained the situation. "Rebecca Lawson," he repeated. "Green jacket?" "That's what he said." Edgar was quiet for a moment. Then he walked to the tree line and let out a sharp, short whistle. Nothing happened. He whistled again, a rustling in the underbrush, the crack of a branch. And then I saw them, footprints appearing in the soft earth, one after another, moving toward us from deep in the forest. Bramble. The invisible dog approached until the footprints stopped about 10 feet from Edgar. I could hear breathing, heavy, rhythmic breathing, but I couldn't see anything. "Hey, boy," Edgar said softly. "Got a job for you. There's a girl lost in there. Green jacket. Name's Rebecca. Can you find her?" A low whine, the sound a dog makes when it's eager to please. "Good boy. Bring her home." The footprints turned, headed back into the forest, faster now, running. An hour later, Rebecca Lawson stumbled out of the woods. She was disoriented, confused. She couldn't remember the last 12 hours. But she was alive, unharmed. Her boyfriend cried. She cried. They held each other for a long time. I never told them about the fog, about the shapes I'd seen, about the invisible dog that had led her out of the forest. Some things are better left unexplained. After that night, I started keeping my own notes in the black notebook. I wrote down everything, the dates and times of incidents, the behaviors of the yellow-eyed visitors, the patterns I'd noticed in their appearances. They came more often during the full moon. They were more aggressive when it rained. They seemed to avoid the area around Spot 7, the one furthest from the main building. I also noticed something about the colors. Red attracted the looker. That much I knew from the original rules. But I started to realize that yellow attracted the yellow-eyed ones. And green seemed to be safe, a protective color, something they avoided. I tested my theory one night. I borrowed a yellow rain jacket from the lost and found box and hung it on a post at the edge of the parking lot. By midnight, there were 3 yellow-eyed figures standing in the trees, staring at it. They didn't approach, didn't try to take it, just stared. When I took the jacket down and put it back in the lost and found, they drifted away. Colors mattered. Colors were part of the rules. I wrote it all down. My 15th week was when everything almost fell apart. It started with a phone call. I was restocking the chip aisle around 9 p.m. when the old rotary phone behind the counter started ringing. I hadn't even known it worked. I'd assumed it was just decoration. I answered, "Pike's RV, stop." Static, crackling, and then a voice, distant, distorted, like it was coming from very, very far away. "Help, please. Someone. The fog. Can't find—" "Hello? Can you hear me? They're everywhere. The yellow ones. Can't get out. Where are you? What's your location?" "Inside. I'm inside. Don't trust." The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, heart pounding. "Don't trust what?" Nimbus whistled sharply. 2 notes. I turned toward the window and froze. There was a man standing on the front porch, right outside the door. He was wearing the same clothes I was wearing, jeans, flannel shirt, Pike's RV stopcap. He had my face, exactly my face, every detail, every feature, but his eyes were yellow. He smiled, my smile, but wrong, stretched too wide, and pressed his hand against the glass. "Let me in, Lane," he said with my voice. "It's cold out here." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He pressed harder against the glass. The window started to crack. "Let me in, let me in, let me in, let me in, man. Mine," Nimbus screamed. Not a whistle, a scream, a sound I'd never heard her make before. And then she dove. The white crow launched herself from her perch like a missile. She hit the window just as it shattered, talons extended, aiming for the thing that wore my face. It screamed too, a sound that was nothing like my voice, nothing like any human voice, and stumbled backward. Nimbus was relentless. She attacked its face, its eyes, her white feathers stained with something that wasn't quite blood. The thing tried to swat her away, but she was too fast, too fierce. I finally broke free of my paralysis. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, my new favorite weapon, and charged through the broken window. The thing saw me coming. It threw Nimbus aside. She hit the ground hard, but immediately got back up and turned to face me. Its features were melting, sliding off like wax. My face was becoming something else, something with too many teeth and eyes that burned like suns. I pulled the pin and blasted it with chemical foam. It screamed again, clawed at its face, stumbled backward off the porch, and then it ran. Into the parking lot, into the darkness. Gone. I stood there, breathing hard, fire extinguisher clutched in my shaking hands. Nimbus hopped over to me. One of her wings was bent at an odd angle. She was hurt, but she was still standing, still watching the darkness. "You saved my life," I whispered. She made a soft sound, not a whistle, more like a purr. I carried her inside and spent the rest of the night tending to her injuries. By sunrise, she was able to fly again. Not well, but well enough. I gave her extra corn and an entire apple, sliced just the way she liked it. Some debts can never be fully repaid. Edgar found me the next morning sitting on the porch, staring at nothing. "I heard what happened," he said. "How?" "Nimbus told me." I looked at him. "She talks to you?" "Not with words, but we understand each other." He settled into his chair. "That was a mimic. Most dangerous thing in these woods. They can copy anyone, anything, near perfect replicas." "How do you tell them apart from real people?" "Eyes. Always the eyes. No matter how good the copy, they can't hide the yellow. So if someone shows up and their eyes are normal, then they're probably human. Probably." He paused. "The safe thing is to ask them something only the real person would know. A memory, a secret. The mimics can copy bodies, but they can't copy minds." I nodded slowly. filed that information away. Has one ever gotten inside? The building, I mean? Edgar was quiet for a long time. Once, he finally said. Long time ago, before I knew the rules. He didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. 3 months to the day after I started working at Pike's RV stop, the looker came for me. Not in the middle of the night, not during a fog or a storm, in the late afternoon, 2 hours before sunset, while Edgar was still there. But before I tell you about that day, the day everything changed, I need to tell you about the week leading up to it, because looking back, the signs were everywhere. I just didn't know how to read them yet. It started with Bramble. The invisible dog had always been a comforting presence. I'd hear him patrolling at night, the rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs, the soft padding of massive paws on forest floor. Sometimes I'd see his footprints appear in the mud after a rainstorm, circling the perimeter of the RV spots like a guardian making rounds. But that week, something was different. His prints were deeper, more frantic. Instead of the usual patrol pattern, he was running back and forth along the tree line, over and over, like he was pacing, like he was worried. I mentioned it to Edgar during one of our shift changes. Bramble's been acting strange, I said. Restless. Edgar's face went pale, actually pale. In 3 months, I'd never seen him react to anything with more than a tired shrug. How long? He asked. A few days, maybe a week. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and stared out at the forest. It's almost time, he muttered. More to himself than to me. Time for what? He didn't answer. The second sign was Nimbus. My white crow had become more than just an early warning system. She was a friend, a companion in the long dark hours. She'd learned to recognize my car, and she'd whistle a greeting whenever I pulled into the lot. Sometimes she'd land on my shoulder while I restocked shelves, making soft cooing sounds like she was keeping me company. But that week, she wouldn't come near me. She stayed on her perch above the door, watching me with those pink eyes. Not hostile, not scared, just sad. Like she knew something I didn't. When I tried to feed her, the usual corn and apple slices, she wouldn't eat it from my hand. She'd wait until I stepped away, then flutter down to take the food. What's wrong, girl? I asked her one night. Did I do something? She just tilted her head and made a sound I'd never heard before. A low, mournful whistle that seemed to echo off the trees. It sounded like goodbye. The third sign was the notebook. I'd been reading through it again. I did that sometimes, refreshing my memory on the rules, when I noticed something I'd never seen before. A page I'd somehow missed. It was stuck to the back of another page, the edges fused together with age. I carefully pried them apart, and there it was, a single paragraph, written in handwriting I didn't recognize. When the Watcher's warning mourns and the Shadowhound paces, the reckoning approaches. The agreement must be honored, the debt must be paid. One gatekeeper ends, another begins. This is the way. This has always been the way. Below that, in Edgar's handwriting, 40 years. It's been 40 years since the last reckoning. I've had a good run, better than I deserved. Lane, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you directly. Some things have to be discovered. Some truths have to be earned. Take care of Nimbus. Take care of Bramble. Take care of the boundary. And when your time comes, make the choice I made. It's the only way. I read those words 3 times. Then, I drove to Edgar's house. He lived in a small cabin about 15 minutes from the RV stop. I'd been there once before to drop off some paperwork he'd forgotten. It was a modest place, 1 bedroom, a cramped kitchen, A living room dominated by a stone fireplace. When I knocked on the door, he opened it like he'd been expecting me. "You found the page," he said. "What does it mean? The reckoning?" He sighed, stepped aside to let me in. The cabin was warm. A fire crackled in the hearth. On the mantel, I noticed photographs I hadn't seen before. Edgar, as a younger man. Edgar with people I didn't recognize. And one photo, faded and yellow with age, of Edgar standing next to an older woman in front of Pike's RV stop. "That's Martha," he said, following my gaze. "The gatekeeper before me." What happened to her? The same thing that happens to all of us, eventually. He lowered himself into an armchair. "Sit down, Lane. It's time you knew the whole truth." I sat, and he told me. "The agreement goes back centuries," Edgar began. "Long before there was a road here. Long before there was a town. The forest has always been occupied by things that were here before us, things that don't belong to our world but have made this place their home. The yellow-eyed ones, the looker, them, and others. Things we don't have names for. Things that stay so deep in the forest that even bramble won't go near them." He stared into the fire. "When the first settlers came through this area, they made a mistake. They thought the forest was empty, unclaimed. They started cutting down trees, building homes, hunting game. And the things in the forest didn't like that. No, they didn't." He was quiet for a moment. "There was a war. Not a war like you're thinking. Battles and armies. A quiet war. People disappearing in the night. Livestock found torn apart. Entire families gone without a trace. How did it end? A woman named Elizabeth Marsh made a deal. She was a healer, a wise woman. Some people called her a witch, but I don't think that's quite right. She was just someone who could see things others couldn't. Someone the forest respected." He stood up and walked to a shelf in the corner, pulled out an old leather-bound journal and handed it to me. "This is her journal. The original agreement is written in here. I've read it 100 times, and I still don't understand all of it. But the basic terms are clear." I opened the journal carefully. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, but I could make out the words. "We, the keepers of the threshold, do hereby agree to maintain the boundary between our world and theirs. We will watch. We will warn. We will protect those who pass through from the dangers they cannot see. In return, they will stay within the deep forest. They will not hunt beyond the boundary. They will not take those who follow the rules. But every 40 years, the debt must be paid. A life for a life. The gatekeeper's life for 40 years of protection. This is the price. This is the agreement." I looked up at Edgar. "You're going to die." It wasn't a question. "Yes." He said it simply, without fear. "In 3 days, the looker will come, and I will meet it. There has to be another way." "There isn't." He took the journal from my hands. Elizabeth Marsh tried to find a loophole. So did every gatekeeper after her. There is no loophole. The agreement is binding. The price is fixed. What if you just left, drove away, went somewhere they couldn't find you? They'd find me, or they'd take someone else, a random hiker, a family on vacation, an innocent person who didn't know the rules. He shook his head. "I won't let that happen. This is my responsibility, my choice." I didn't know what to say, so I said the only thing I could think of. "I'll be there when it happens. You won't be alone." Edgar looked at me for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile, warm and grateful. "I was hoping you'd say that." I'd arrived early that day because Edgar wanted to show me something. He led me around the back of the building to a spot I'd never noticed before, a small clearing in the trees, hidden by dense undergrowth. In the center of the clearing was a stone, flat and round, about 3 feet across, covered in symbols I didn't recognize. "What is this?" I asked. "The agreement stone," Edgar said. "Been here longer than the building, longer than the road, maybe longer than anything." "Agreement with who?" He didn't answer directly. Instead, he pointed to the symbols. "This mark here, that's us, humans. And this one, that's them, the ones in the forest, the original inhabitants. They made a deal? Something like that. Boundaries, rules. As long as we stay on our side and follow the rules, they stay on their side." He paused. "Most of the time." "What happens if someone breaks the agreement?" Edgar looked at me with those old, tired eyes. "Bad things. Very bad things." We were walking back to the main building when Nimbus started screaming. Not whistling. Screaming. That same terrible sound she'd made when the mimic attacked. And then the forest went silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. Nothing. Edgar stopped dead in his tracks. "Get inside," he said quietly. "Now." "What? Now?" I ran. I made it to the back door, yanked it open, and turned to make sure Edgar was behind me. He wasn't. He was standing in the middle of the parking lot, facing the trees, and coming out of the trees, walking slowly, deliberately, was the Looker. It was taller than I remembered, 10 feet, maybe 11. Its shadow body seemed to drink in the afternoon light, leaving a trail of darkness behind it. Its antlers, the broken left one and the twisted right one, scraped against the branches as it moved, and it was heading straight for Edgar. "Edgar, run!" He didn't move, didn't look away from the approaching entity. "Stay inside, Lane. Don't come out, no matter what happens. I'm not leaving you out there. You don't have a choice." His voice was calm, resigned. "The agreement says one of us has to face it when it comes calling. That's what the day shift is really for. The night shift watches, the day shift negotiates." The Looker was 50 feet away now, 40, 30. Negotiates? What does that mean? It means someone has to pay the price. Edgar finally turned to look at me. "When I'm gone, you'll understand. The notebook will tell you. Just keep following the rules, Lane. Keep the boundary. Keep the balance." "Edgar, it's been 40 years, he said. 40 years is a long time to keep watch. I'm tired. And maybe—" He smiled. It was a sad smile, but peaceful. "Maybe it's time for the next gatekeeper to take over." The Looker reached him. It stopped, towered over the old man. That massive, impossible form blocking out the sun. Edgar looked up at it without fear. "I'm ready," he said. The entity's broken antler lowered toward him, almost gentle, almost reverent. And then Edgar Pike was gone. No scream, no struggle. He was simply gone. The Looker stood there for a moment, its eyeless head turned toward the building, toward me. I felt its gaze, even through the walls, even through the glass. It saw me. It knew me, and then it walked back into the forest. Just like that. I found the final pages of the notebook that night, hidden in the back, tucked behind a false panel in the cover. Pages that Edgar had kept separate from the rest. The truth about the agreement, about the gatekeepers, about the price. Every 40 years, the one who holds the day shift must make a choice. Face the Looker alone, or let it take someone else. Anyone else. A random camper, a lost hiker, an innocent bystander. Edgar had made his choice decades ago when he took over from the gatekeeper before him, and he'd spent 40 years protecting people from that choice, keeping them away when he knew it was coming, warning them, saving them, until it was time to pay. The night shift watches, the pages read. The day shift protects. But every 40 years, the day must give way to the darkness. That is the agreement. That is the price. I sat on the porch until sunrise, holding those pages. Nimbus sat beside me, silent, mourning in her own way. The days after Edgar's disappearance were the hardest of my life. I didn't know what to do with myself. The RV stop sat empty. The closed sign hung in the window. I couldn't bring myself to turn on the lights, to pretend everything was normal, to act like the man who'd saved my life hadn't just walked into oblivion. But the forest didn't care about my grief. On the third night, Nimbus started whistling. 2 notes, sharp and urgent. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot, staring at nothing, when I heard her. At first, I ignored it. What did it matter? Edgar was gone. The rules didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered. Then, 3 notes. Then, continuous whistling. And then, I heard the screaming. It was coming from the forest. A woman's voice, high and terrified. "Help! Somebody help me!" I was out of the car before I knew what I was doing, running toward the tree line, flashlight in hand. "Hello? Where are you? Please, they're everywhere. I can't—" The voice cut off. I stopped at the edge of the trees. My flashlight beam barely penetrated the darkness. I could see maybe 10 feet in front of me. Beyond that, nothing. Just black. And then I saw the eyes. Yellow. Dozens of them, scattered through the trees like fireflies, all staring at me. The yellow-eyed ones. They were waiting, watching, seeing if I would break the rules, seeing if I would cross the boundary. "I know what you're doing," I said. My voice shook, but I held my ground. That wasn't a real person. That was bait. The eyes didn't move. "I'm not falling for it." Silence. Then slowly, the eyes began to fade, one by one, blinking out like candles being snuffed, until the forest was dark again. I stood there for a long time, and I realized something. They were testing me. The things in the forest, they wanted to know if Edgar's replacement would be as strong as he was, as disciplined, as committed to the rules. I walked back to the RV stop, unlocked the door, turned on the lights, and started my shift. The next test came 2 nights later. A young man stumbled out of the forest around 3 a.m. He was bloody, disoriented, babbling about something chasing him. Nimbus gave 1 whistle. Probably safe. I ran out to help him, got him inside, sat him down with a cup of coffee and some bandages for his cuts. "What happened?" I asked. I don't know. I was hiking, took a wrong turn, got lost." He shook his head. "Then I saw them. These lights in the trees, yellow lights, moving toward me." I felt my stomach tighten. "What did you do?" "I ran as fast as I could. Couldn't see where I was going. Fell down a ravine, I think. Hit my head." He touched a gash on his forehead. When I woke up, the lights were gone, but I could still feel them, watching me. I looked at his eyes. Brown, normal brown. I asked him a few questions, where he was from, where he'd parked his car, details only a real person would know. He answered everything correctly. "You're lucky," I said. "Really lucky. Those lights you saw, they're not friendly. If they'd caught up to you—" "What? What would have happened?" I thought about lying, thought about making up some story about mountain lions or territorial bears. But Edgar hadn't lied to me. He'd given me the truth, hard as it was. "You'd be gone?" I said. "Just gone. Like you never existed." The young man, his name was Tyler, stayed until morning. I wouldn't let him leave in the dark. When the sun came up, I walked him to his car, which was parked at the trailhead about a mile down the road. Before he got in, he turned to me. "You're not like other gas station attendants, are you?" I almost laughed. "No, I'm really not." "What are you then? What is this place?" I thought about it. How to explain something that defied explanation. "I'm a gatekeeper," I finally said. "And this place is a boundary between your world and something else. Something older. Something dangerous." He stared at me. "You're serious?" "Completely." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "I'm a journalist. I write for an outdoor magazine. Stories about strange places, unexplained phenomena." He handed me the card. "If you ever want to talk, really talk, about what's going on out here, call me." I looked at the card. Tyler Morrison, Wilderness Journal, Seeking the Unexplained. "Maybe someday," I said, "when I understand it better myself." He nodded, got in his car, drove away. I still have that card, haven't called him yet. But maybe one day I will. Maybe one day the world needs to know about places like Pike's RV stop. Or maybe some secrets are meant to stay secret. I haven't decided yet. The hardest test came a month after Edgar's death. Death. I'd started thinking of it that way, even though I didn't know for certain that he was dead. Maybe the looker had taken him somewhere. Maybe he was still alive in some other place, some other dimension. But probably not. The test came in the form of a little girl. She wandered out of the forest at dusk. Couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. Blonde hair, blue dress, barefoot. Nimbus went absolutely insane, whistling so hard and fast that she nearly fell off her perch. I ran outside. "Hey, are you okay? Are you lost?" The little girl looked at me with big, frightened eyes. "I can't find my mommy." My heart broke. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'll help you." "When did you last see your mommy?" "In the forest. We were walking. And then she was gone." Tears started rolling down her cheeks. "I've been walking for so long. I'm so tired." Every instinct told me to scoop her up, bring her inside, give her something to eat, call the police. But Nimbus was still screaming. I looked at the little girl's eyes. Blue. Perfectly normal blue. But something was wrong. Something I couldn't quite identify. Then I realized. She wasn't blinking. Not once. In the entire time I'd been talking to her, she hadn't blinked a single time. "What's your mommy's name?" I asked carefully. The little girl tilted her head, just like the mimic had tilted its head when it wore my face. "Mommy?" she said. "What's your name?" She smiled. That wrong smile, too wide, too many teeth. "Daughter." I took a step back. "You're not a little girl." The smile got wider. The blue eyes flickered. Just for a second. Yellow. "You're learning," the thing said. Its voice was changing, deepening, becoming something else. The old gatekeeper would have been fooled, at least for a moment. But you saw through me almost immediately. "What do you want?" "To test you, to see if you're worthy of the boundary." It stepped closer. "The agreement requires a gatekeeper of sufficient strength, sufficient wisdom, sufficient will. If you fail, the agreement breaks, and we will be free to roam." "I'm not going to fail. We'll see." The little girl's form shimmered, dissolved, became shadow and smoke and yellow light. Then it was gone. I stood there in the fading light, shaking. But I hadn't broken the rules. I hadn't let it in. I had passed the test. A week later, I opened the store for the first time since Edgar disappeared. A week later, I opened the store for the first time since Edgar disappeared. I'd cleaned everything, fixed the broken window, restocked the shelves, put a fresh pot of coffee on, and I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to walk away and let someone else stumble into this job without knowing what they were getting into. I was going to stay. For 40 years if I had to. Because someone had to hold the boundary. Someone had to keep watch. Someone had to make sure the things in the forest stayed in the forest. And apparently, that someone was me. The first customer of the day was a young woman, college age. She pulled up in a beat-up Honda and came inside looking for directions. "Is this the way to Black Pine National Forest?" she asked. "It is, but I'd recommend heading north to Pinewood Grove instead. Better facilities, safer trails." She laughed. "I'm not worried about safety. I've been camping my whole life." I looked at her, really looked at her. She was wearing a red backpack. My heart sank. "That's a nice backpack," I said carefully. "But red's not a good color in these woods. Attracts mosquitoes." I paused. "I'll tell you what. I've got a green one in back that I'll trade you for. Straight across. Better than yours, honestly. Just got it in." She raised an eyebrow. "You're kidding." "I'm really not." Something in my voice must have convinced her. She studied my face for a long moment. "Why do you care so much about my backpack color?" I thought about all the things I could tell her. The rules, the creatures, the price. Instead, I just said, "Because someone cared enough to warn me once, and it saved my life." She was quiet. Then, she took off her red backpack and handed it to me. "All right, show me this green one." I smiled, my first real smile in a week. "Follow me." That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've become the full-time attendant at Pike's RV stop, day and night. I hired a college kid to help with the overnight shifts, someone who doesn't ask too many questions and follows directions well. I gave him the black notebook on his first night, watched his face as he read through the rules. "Is this for real?" he asked. "Every word." He looked at me like I was crazy. I remembered looking at Edgar the exact same way. "Give it 2 weeks," I said. "If you still think I'm crazy after that, you can quit. No hard feelings." He's been here for 3 months now. He hasn't quit. Some nights we sit on the porch together, watching the trees, listening to Nimbus whistle from her perch. Sometimes I tell him about Edgar, about the looker, about the agreement. He listens, takes notes, adds his own observations to the notebook. The chain continues. I think about Edgar a lot. I think about the choice he made, facing that thing alone instead of letting it take someone else. 40 years from now, it'll be my turn. My choice. And I already know what I'll choose. Because that's what gatekeepers do. We hold the line. We keep the balance. We pay the price. So, yeah. I work at an abandoned RV stop on the edge of a national forest. Strange things happen here every night. Things that shouldn't exist. Things that hunger and hunt and wait in the darkness between the trees. But I've got a white crow that warns me when danger approaches. An invisible dog that patrols the perimeter. A notebook full of rules that have kept people alive for decades. And I've got 40 years before the bill comes due. Plenty of time to figure out what comes next. My name is Lane Harper. I used to think this job was temporary, something to pay for school. But now I know the truth. This isn't a job. It's a calling. And for better or worse, I answered.